As soon as I think, the first cab driver, the first Uber driver was a Venezuelan, and he was really happy with Milei because obviously coming from Venezuela, he knew all the socialist nonsense was just going to destroy the country. And something else that I learned from this Venezuelan guy is that it's relatively easy for Venezuelans to move to Argentina. I think within a matter of a week, he just went to some office, he showed some simple paperwork, and he was already able to work very quickly. So that was nice to see that a lot of them, they have a lot of immigrants there from Latin America, and they can very quickly find jobs. And it seems like the underground market. I mean, it's a big bureaucracy, but
Yeah.
they were telling me that even with the big bureaucracy and everything,
Yeah.
like Argentina is a great place for like other Latin America immigrants.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 232. I'm talking with Jorge Besada. He's had a few articles published on the Mises Institute, and he's run for Congress as a libertarian, and he's also visits other Latin American countries. He's got some Cuban ancestry, and he's also been to Argentina recently. So we're going to talk about Javier Milei and analyze a few speeches. This is also 2 days after some major news in the world of Milei and Argentine politics. She was either fired. Was fired or she resigned. But she resigned. That is the minister, Diana Mondino, really one of the better people in Milei's cabinet, and she was Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade and Worship for the. So she was, and she has now been replaced by a man named Gerardo. Looks like last name is Wetherein, or looks like Wetherein. Looks like a very German last name. So. Anyway, so she is out. So yes, now we're here to talk about that. We're also going to analyze some speeches and go over some highlights. How are you, Jorge?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm being great company.
It was nice having you here. We like to talk about Milei. I'm still looking into what's happening, why this happened. We certainly can look at around the events, but when somebody is fired or dismissed from a job or they resign, sometimes you never know all the reasons why, for legal reasons or whatever. It's never very transparent, unfortunately. And I certainly have been in jobs where I've seen people get fired and I had no idea why they were fired. How about you, Jorge? You had that experience too?
I don't remember now, like having people fired. Nope, I don't know.
Well, maybe you've never been out in the real world. I don't understand. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I have been out the real world. Yeah, but
it's been a very interesting time in Argentina. First of all, there's something else I'd like to share here, and this is we're going to share a few things here because we got a UN speech which was only about 15 minutes, but this is this will definitely go into the Milei Hall of Fame. Milei, on October 18th, the Minister of Health died, former Minister of Health, who was Ginés González Garcia. He died on the 18th of October, and he was the Minister of Health on several occasions and was also from 2019 to 2021, a specialist in public health care, according to Wikipedia. And so he was at least instrumental somewhat in some of the coronavirus policies which happened in Argentina, which involved shutting down the country, ordering people to stay at home. And we're going to watch what our man Milei here had to say about this. And this is only a minute long, but it's definitely one of those great sound bites that we'll definitely remember for a while, because that's what you got to do. You got to produce sound bites. Milei gives you some wonderful sound bites. Guess that's kind of what makes him a legend, isn't it? We won't have captions on this, though, but we'll explain what's happening.
En el día de ayer dejó este mundo, digamos, ese ser siniestro que fue el impresentable y repugnante ministro de Salud que tuvimos, cómplice de la cuarentena cavernícola más grande de la historia y que además fue el responsable junto al expresidente Alberto Fernández de la muerte de 100.000 argentinos, porque si Argentina hubiera hecho las cosas como un país mediocre, hubiera habido 30.000 muertos, sin embargo nosotros pasamos los 130.000. Por lo tanto, digamos, a pesar de que murió y la gente les gusta manifestar, digamos, parece que los muertos se vuelven buenos, ¿no? Este era un hijo de remil puta y será recordado como un hijo de puta.
Milei called him a hijo de puta, which roughly translates to son of whore. Hijo, son, de of, puta, whore. So this is I think insults like that are valuable, but you have to only use them a certain amount of time. If you use them too much, people are just going to say he's a really mean guy. But if you're a nice guy most of the time, and then every once in a while you just drop it out there for flair, it's effective.
They're Argentinians, so
yeah,
they're good at this.
Yeah, I don't know what their culture is. It's a different cultural differences. I have learned one thing I have learned watching politics is some of these people are too nice, and I think when they're too nice, you're eventually viewed as a coward, and nobody respects a coward. But they also don't respect you if you're a real bully either. It's one of those balancing acts that you have to find. So now the resignation of Mondino. This is from Mondino's own Twitter account, and I will read this off. I'm going to use Twitter's translations here. To Mr. President, it has been a great honor to work these past few months with you and the entire government on this project to rebuild Argentina. I hereby resign from the position with which I have been honored, knowing that I have done everything possible with great effort and dedication, and I would do it again to fulfill your mandate as minister. It is a challenge to get Argentina back on its feet and regain the international respect it should never have lost. I know that you have strong ideas, and above all, that you have the courage to stick to them. I can only say that there is a lot of work ahead, and I will support you from wherever you are. You can count on me and the support of millions of Argentinians. So that was a sad moment with Mondino being, I've told people who organize conferences in America that, you may not be able to get Milei, but get this woman named Diana Mondino. She's really solid. Have her come speak. And I don't know it's funny. I've heard her on some interviews in English. Milei is not fluent in English, but a few people on his cabinet are fluent in English. So I definitely would recommend her. She's been political. She's got an interesting trajectory. She's born in 1958. Same day as my nephew's birthday. And she's been with La Libertad Avanza. She's had an academic career. And now this new person, Gerardo Wetherein, he was the ambassador to the U.S., and so now he's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Also served on the International Olympic Committee and the Argentine Olympic Committee and Summer Youth Olympics. Looks like he's also been. Looks like this guy has a lot of ties to America, so I don't know don't really know much about this guy yet. So we'll close the book on him. You mentioned one thing. I did notice also. Looks like Milei has gotten very close to this lady named. Well. Okay, let's back up here, not go there. At least I'm hearing from that there might have been several reasons for Mondino's dismissal, but at least the event that happened 2 days ago was this event, and I'm going to do another screen share here to show this because this was a vote at the UN, which Mondino often shows up and votes for these and represents her country. And This was a vote asking the United States of America to end its 60-plus year embargo against Cuba. Now, these are, you're in South Florida, Jorge. What's the attitude toward that embargo down there? Because there are a lot of people who have Cuban ancestry down there, and yeah,
I think the established politicians there, they're usually for it, I think.
But what about just, do you get out and talk to people on the street though? I mean, do you talk to, just the average? Because I mean,
No.
One thing about this embargo is it makes it very hard to travel there. I mean, I think, if you have ancestors in a country, you at least would like to be easy to be able to go and visit them. I mean, how often do you know people visiting a country? I mean, what's your history visiting?
I mean, I haven't gone back. I was gonna go back right before COVID mania hit, but once COVID mania hit, they closed the airports and all that stuff. And I think, part of this embargo, I think Cubans, when they want to travel to Cuba, like I myself, first I have to get a Cuban passport, and then when I go over there with my Cuban passport. So if something happens, I'm screwed. And I think that might be related to some of this politics. And if they do open up and they change things, like I think Obama wanted to do, then maybe I would be able to go as an American with my American passport. But that's just one of the tricky things about traveling. And the passport is expensive. It cost me like $500 to get my Cuban passport.
Yeah, that's I'm hearing a lot of things. I mean, from what I hear, a lot of Americans, when they go there, they'll go to Mexico or something like that, and then they'll fly there. They don't go to the country directly, even though it's it's less than 100 miles from the southern tip of Florida. I mean, I don't know how you could maintain an embargo for 60 plus years against a country that is this close to you, and you have it just doesn't. And obviously, whatever the goal of the embargo was, and apparently, to topple this Castro's regime, it obviously has not worked. But anyway, so there was this resolution, calling on the U.S. to end this embargo. And we have this long list of countries. I mean, there were 187 countries who voted yes, 2 who voted no, and 1 who voted abstention. I'm looking at, and maybe there are a few people who maybe didn't vote, but I'm looking at this chart here. And, I see the USA and I see Israel saying no, but everybody else, I mean, these are countries, a lot of countries that we would consider allies voted yes. A lot of countries that Argentina would consider allies would consider yes. I mean, and this was just a resolution, so it really doesn't do anything other than say, hey, this is, resolutions are just a way of a method of virtue signaling. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I think historically, a lot of these left-leaning countries, they've been very critical of Israel. And I wonder if Cuba has been, a bit too critical lately. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, this is it seems like if this was the reason for dismissing Mondino, it seems like a very minor issue. I mean, she didn't. I mean, Milei has let's look over this list here. I mean, just, Argentina votes yes. I mean, and that was Mondino. Milei's, he's friendly with Viktor Orban in Hungary. They voted yes. He's certainly friendly with, he's certainly trying to build, I mean, Chile, I mean, they voted yes. Paraguay voted yes. Peru voted yes. I mean, Brazil voted yes. Italy, I mean, Milei's certainly been hanging out with Giorgia Meloni a lot. They voted yes. Spain voted yes. I mean, all these countries that are, and certainly a lot of these countries are officially anti-communist. So it's not, just because that, I mean, Venezuela looks like they abstained, Ukraine abstained, and or some of these are just got black squares. So that doesn't mean a yes or a no vote. So the only official abstention looks like it was Mongolia, but yeah. So that's a very, obviously countries that, Canada voted yes, Japan voted yes, Mexico voted yes. Germany voted yes. The United Kingdom voted yes. I mean, what's this? It doesn't seem like it's that big a deal that this thing was voted yes on. So if this is the reason, I'm kind of scratching my head about it. Now, looking here, one of the representatives who seemed to favor this was a lady named Maria Elvira Salazar. And she's the congressperson who lives in, and she says, and again, this is also translated, Google Translate, but I just spoke with President Javier Milei after the expulsion of Foreign Minister Diana Mondino for voting in favor of the Cuban regime at the UN. To Milei, my thanks on behalf of the exile and the Cuban people for defending the values of freedom and democracy. So, yeah, I guess that's
Yeah, she's local to Miami. I think her district covers Miami Beach. I got to meet her in person one time at a political thing she went to.
I don't think embargoes. I haven't looked up the history of embargoes, but when has an embargo ever really worked? I mean, when has it gotten you to do what you wanted the other country to do? I am opposed to communism as much as anybody. When you've had an embargo going for 60 years, which apparently makes this maybe one of the longest embargoes in the history of the world, you maybe ought to ask yourself, is this embargo working? But politics is, the art of doubling down, I guess, and not admitting you've made a mistake. Salazar is an interesting character. She looks like she's been to Argentina a lot. I see her. She's definitely a fan of Milei, so I wonder if she was at least influential in this decision. Looks like she was in December 10th was the inauguration. Looks like she was there for it. Is that right? December 10th? Yeah. So, yeah, she was. I'm looking at her Twitter now. So, it went down for the inauguration. Here's a picture of her with Villarreal. Here's a picture of her with Diana Mondino. Yeah, she says, I loved sharing with two ladies who made this new dawn possible alongside Milei. How much decency intelligence there is in this Vice President-elect Victoria Villarreal and the future Foreign Minister Diana Mondino. I'll have to tweet back at her on this sometime. I said, yes, she was recently there on July 9th. Here's another picture with Mondino on May 17th. Today I had a very good conversation with Argentine Foreign Minister Diana Mondino. I congratulated her for her work and for leading Argentina together with President Milei away from socialism. They are a moral benchmark of the region, for the region, yes. She was also a reporter with one of the networks, so I think she was with Univision, yes. So it sounds like she's had an interesting trajectory, yes. Born in 1961, but she definitely doesn't look it. Also, master's degree in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School, and ran for Congress in 2018 and lost, got elected in 2020. Oh, and she passed the bipartisan, she was voting on the Bipartisan Background Checks Act. Isn't that love? So she's not even she's a red voter who doesn't want to be red. She wants to vote for gun control and also supported a carbon tax. Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Opposed review. Yeah. She's definitely. She was at least according to Wikipedia, she was the only member of Congress there. So. Yeah, it's so anyway, that's where we are on this. This is we're definitely coming upon it. And I don't, obviously we don't know all the reasons why here. It's a funny what you learn with things like this, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out. I've already been talking to friends. I'm going to probably put out message to all the people I know and see what they say. So far, they're not really happy about this. So this is Milei's speech at the United Nations. It's only about 14 minutes long. This was after his, I believe, right after his visit to the stock market. Okay, we'll start this speech now.
A las autoridades de las Naciones Unidas, los representantes de los distintos países que la integran y todos los ciudadanos del mundo que nos estén mirando.
He seems like very calm here. I think he's going to really tone it down for this audience. He's a little more theatrical with other speeches, but I don't think he really needs to get theatrical with this crowd. What do you think?
I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Buenas tardes. Para aquellos que no lo saben, yo no soy político. Soy un economista liberal libertario.
I am not a politician. I am an economist.
Jamás tuvo la ambición de hacer política y que fue honrado con el cargo de presidente de la República Argentina frente al fracaso estrepitoso de más de un siglo de políticas colectivistas que destruyeron nuestro país.
It's talking about 100 years of failure of collectivist policies, which of course we might as well say that's about the whole world.
Este es mi primer discurso frente a la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas y quiero aprovechar para con humildad alertar a las distintas naciones del mundo sobre el camino que están transitando hace décadas y sobre el peligro que implica que esta organización fracase en cumplir su misión original. No vengo aquí a decirle al mundo lo que tiene que hacer. Vengo aquí a decirle al mundo, por un lado, lo que va a ocurrir si las Naciones Unidas continúan promoviendo las políticas colectivistas que vienen promoviendo bajo el mandato de la Agenda 2030. Y por el otro, cuáles son los valores que la...
First time he mentions Agenda 2030. I've noticed looks like he's keeping his head down that much. He's not even looking much at the camera, which I find interesting compared to some of his other speeches. What do you think?
I don't know. Seems normal and average to me. I don't know. I haven't. Yeah.
La nueva Argentina defiende. Quiero sí comenzar dando crédito cuando el crédito corresponde. La Organización de Naciones Unidas nace del horror.
Okay, look who's here now. We got Caputo, Mondino, and of course his sister Karina. There's a little sign saying Argentina by their names, and behind them it looks like a guy from Belgium. Looks like that guy's buried in a laptop or something, but oh well. Yeah. I don't know if other people went elsewhere, but that's the three here.
De la guerra más cruenta de la historia global, con el objetivo principal de que nunca volviera a ocurrir. Para ello, la organización grabó en piedra sus principios fundamentales en la Declaración Universal de Derechos Humanos. Ahí se consignó un acuerdo básico en torno a una máxima, que todos los seres humanos nacen libres e iguales en dignidad y derechos. Bajo la tutela de esta organización y la adopción de estas ideas, durante los últimos 70 años la humanidad vivió en periodo de paz global más largo de la historia, que coincidió también con el periodo de mayor crecimiento económico de la historia. Se creó un foro internacional donde las naciones pudieran dirimir sus conflictos a través de la cooperación, en vez de recurrir instantáneamente a las armas, y se logró algo impensado: sentar de manera permanente a las 5 potencias más grandes del mundo en una misma mesa, cada una con el mismo poder de veto, a pesar de tener intereses totalmente contrapuestos.
I like where he really takes on the UN here. You know, he talks about people who have competing interests sitting at the table at the UN. It's like what Ayn Rand said. Yeah. What were you going to say there?
You know, it's been 70 years of relative peace. I mean, I was just talking to my neighbor today. He fought in the Vietnam War, so we still had a lot of Cuban Missile Crisis, but we've managed to stay away from the big one, so it's good.
We somehow have. I don't know if it's just been dumb luck or whatever, but yes.
Todo esto no hizo que el flagelo de la guerra desapareciera, pero se logró por ahora que ningún conflicto escalara a proporciones mundiales. El resultado fue que pasamos de tener 2 guerras mundiales en menos de 40 años, que en conjunto se cobraron más de 120 millones de vidas, a tener 70 años consecutivos de relativa paz y estabilidad global, bajo el manto de un orden que permitió al mundo entero integrarse comercialmente, competir y prosperar. Porque donde entra el comercio no entran las balas, decía Bastiat. Porque el comercio garantiza la paz, la libertad garantiza el comercio y la igualdad ante la ley garantiza la libertad. Se cumplió, en definitiva, lo que consignó el profeta Isaías y se lee en
I love this. This is the first time I've heard him quoting the Bible. The prophet Isaiah recorded and is read.
el parque cruzando la calle. Dios juzgará entre las naciones y arbitrará por los muchos pueblos.
God
Forjarán
will judge between the nations, is what he's saying here, and will arbitrate for the many peoples. They will,
sus espadas en rejas de arado y sus lanzas en podadoras.
and will forge their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning shears. Yes.
No tomará espada contra nación. Nunca más conocerán la guerra. Esto es lo que ha ocurrido mayormente bajo la tutela de las Naciones Unidas en sus primeras décadas. Y por eso, desde esta perspectiva, estamos hablando de un éxito destacable en la historia de las naciones que no puede ser soslayado. Ahora bien, en algún momento, y como suele ocurrir con la mayoría de las estructuras burocráticas que los hombres creamos, esta organización dejó de velar por los principios esbozados en su declaración fundante y comenzó a mutar. Una organización que había sido pensada esencialmente como un escudo para proteger el reino de los hombres, se transformó en un leviatán de múltiples tentáculos que pretende decidir no solo qué debe hacer cada Estado-nación, sino también cómo deben vivir todos los ciudadanos del mundo.
He's basically talking about how organizations that were, set up for peace are now just telling people how to live their lives, which of course is what always happens.
Yeah, great stuff. And I mean, he also meant that as human rights. We were focusing on human rights, and now we turn into those big central planners with tentacles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just central planning at a higher level. My one of my favorite guests, Giant Bandari, talks about how we've basically evolved from small scale tribalism to large scale tribalism.
Yeah. That reminds me, there's a good book called Darwinian Politics by Dave Rubin that focuses on that, showing how we're just like tribes and how we are like maladapted to modernity.
Is that Dave Rubin as in the real conservative?
No, sorry. Sorry, it's Paul Rubin. Paul Rubin, not Dave Rubin. Paul Rubin.
Paul Rubin. Okay, yeah.
And he also gave a great lecture at the Mises Institute. He was given some Hayek Prize, and he gave a great lecture.
I will have to look this up. So yeah.
Así es como pasamos de una organización que perseguía la paz a una organización que le impone una agenda ideológica a sus miembros sobre un sinfín de temas que hacen a la vida.
An organization that imposes peace to an organization that imposes ideological agenda.
Vida del hombre en sociedad. El modelo de Naciones Unidas que había sido exitoso, cuyo origen podemos rastrear en las ideas del presidente Wilson, que hablaba de la sociedad de paz sin victoria y que se fundaba.
Mentions Wilson here. Peace without victory. I don't know if libertarians around the world know how much American libertarians hate Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, I'm one of those that really hates him.
En la cooperación de los Estados-nación ha sido abandonado. Ha sido reemplazado por un modelo de gobierno supranacional de burócratas internacionales que pretenden imponerle a los ciudadanos del mundo un modo de vida determinado. Lo que se está discutiendo esta semana aquí en Nueva York, en la Cumbre del Futuro, no es otra cosa que la profundización de ese rumbo trágico que esta institución ha adoptado. La profundización de un modelo que, en palabras del propio secretario de las Naciones Unidas, exige definir un nuevo contrato social a escala global, redoblando los compromisos de la Agenda 2030. Quiero ser claro en la posición de la Agenda Argentina. La Agenda 2030, aunque bien intencionada en sus metas, no es otra cosa que un programa de gobierno supranacional de corte socialista, que pretende resolver los problemas de la modernidad con soluciones que atentan contra la soberanía de los Estados-nación.
Talks about the problems of modernity, yes.
I like how he mentioned that it was.
Yeah.
I like how he mentions that it was like a well-intentioned. It's important to realize that we just got all these well-intentioned bureaucrats, ignorantly doing all the central planning. I'm glad he's not.
We have that. I don't know if if Hispanics or Argentines are familiar with that cliche that we have in America. The old line that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Y violentan el derecho a la vida, a la libertad y a la propiedad de las personas. Es una agenda que pretende solucionar la pobreza, la desigualdad y la discriminación con legislación que lo único que hace es profundizarla. Porque la historia del mundo demuestra que la única manera de garantizar la prosperidad es limitando el poder del monarca, garantizando la igualdad ante la ley y defendiendo el derecho a la vida, a la libertad y a la propiedad de los individuos. Ha sido precisamente la adopción de esa agenda que obedece a intereses privilegiados y el abandono de los principios esbozados en la Declaración Universal de Derechos Humanos de las Naciones Unidas, lo que tergiversó
Talking now about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is completely distorted, yes.
el rol de esta institución y la puso en una senda equivocada. Así, hemos visto cómo una organización que nació para defender los derechos del hombre ha sido una de las principales propulsoras de la violación sistemática de la libertad, como por ejemplo con las cuarentenas a nivel global durante el año 2020 y que debería
He finally brings up the global quarantines during 2020. Yes. Thank you.
ser considerado un delito de lesa humanidad. En esta misma casa, que dice defender los derechos humanos, han permitido el ingreso al Consejo de Derechos Humanos a dictaduras sangrientas como la de Cuba y Venezuela sin el más mínimo reproche. En esta misma casa, que dice defender los derechos de las mujeres, permite el ingreso al Comité para la Eliminación de la Discriminación contra la Mujer a países que castigan a sus mujeres por mostrar la piel. En esta misma casa, sistemáticamente se ha votado en contra del Estado de Israel, que es el único país de Medio Oriente que defiende la democracia liberal, mientras se ha demostrado en simultáneo una incapacidad total de responder al flagelo del terrorismo. En el plano económico, se han promovido políticas colectivistas que atentan contra el crecimiento económico, violentan los...
I'm always amazed by these guards that just look like statues when somebody's giving a speech. Did you notice that guy, Jorge?
Maybe they're like CS guards,
Yeah.
like the Pope has.
But they never move. It's like they're I couldn't stand still like that for more than 2 minutes.
los derechos de propiedad y entorpecen el proceso económico natural, llegando a impedirle a los países más postergados del mundo gozar libremente de sus propios recursos para salir adelante. Regulaciones y prohibiciones impulsadas precisamente por los países que se desarrollaron gracias a hacer lo mismo que hoy condenan. Se ha promovido además una relación tóxica entre las políticas de gobernanza global y los organismos de crédito internacional, exigiéndole a los países más relegados que comprometan recursos que no tienen en programas que no necesitan, convirtiéndolo en deudores perpetuos para promover la agenda de las élites globales. Tampoco ha ayudado el tutelaje del Foro Económico Mundial, donde se promueven políticas ridículas con anteojeras.
He's taken on the World Economic Forum. Yes, they haven't helped either. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
The World Economic Forum, as bad as they are, like I remember they recommend an economics book by Bob Murphy. Somewhere on their website, they recommend Bob Murphy's like Money Mechanics to help understand inflation. So, I mean, I know they're like, I tend to see the World Economic Forum as just your average central planning, economically clueless bureaucrat, but they're not. I don't think they're like as bad as people assume.
Well, I think sometimes sometimes I think they engage in that just to say, "Oh, we're open-minded. We're open to all positions." There's always this token. I mean, like TV networks will bring on a token libertarian nowadays, and usually the token libertarian, and he's not even a libertarian, but he'll just nod his head and go along with whatever they're saying. Oh yeah, libertarians are with you on this. It's that kind of thing. Yeah, they're just so they've got to put up a book or two like that just to say, well, we're open to all views. They probably never even don't even know who bought. They probably don't even know anything about it or even have opened it up.
But they did invite Milei, right?
Como las políticas de
what?
They did invite Milei, and he gave that big speech.
Yeah, they did invite. I think they realize that he's too big to ignore.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not just he's the president of Argentina, but he's become a force a force everywhere in the Spanish-speaking world now. I mean, people all over South America know who he is. At least a lot of them do. But yeah.
Visión cero que dañan sobre todo a los países pobres, a las políticas vinculadas a los derechos sexuales y reproductivos, cuando la tasa de natalidad de los países occidentales se está desplomando, anunciando un futuro.
He's talking about the collapsing birth rates in the West, which I definitely like that he's talking about that. Yeah. We'd like to thank the nice guy at Jorge Milei for uploading all these videos. This is an amazing channel. Lots of Milei videos here.
Sombrío para todos. Tampoco la organización ha cumplido satisfactoriamente su misión de defender la soberanía territorial de sus integrantes, como sabemos los argentinos de primera mano en la relación con las Islas Malvinas. Y llegamos incluso a una situación...
Now he's bringing up the Islas Malvinas. Oh, yes. The Argentines really want those little islands. Or as Americans and English speakers call them, the Falkland Islands. But
yeah, it reminds me of Margaret Thatcher for whatever reason, right?
Oh yeah, that was her. That was her power play. She was the Iron Lady. Yes, it went down. We're taking back our islands. Yeah, so that was once described as two. I don't remember who just said it, but it was described as, quote, two bald men fighting over a comb, unquote. Yes.
En la que el Consejo de Seguridad, que es el órgano más importante de esta casa, se ha desnaturalizado, porque el veto de sus integrantes permanentes se empezó a utilizar en defensa de los intereses particulares de algunos. Así estamos hoy.
I wonder if Milei is trying to get those islands back. I know Villarruel's father was in the military, and by getting the islands back, maybe that would definitely be a feather in his cap. And he could say, libertarians aren't pacifists, Who knows? What do you think?
I think they have their patriotism and they still feel like those things belong to them. And that's just flag waving stuff.
Yeah, it's and Britain has no. I don't know what to say about Britain anymore. Britain isn't. Sometimes what's happened to Britain is a worse tragedy than what's happened to America, but
Con una organización impotente en brindar soluciones a los verdaderos conflictos globales, como ha sido la aberración y aberrante invasión rusa a Ucrania, que ya le ha costado la vida a más de 300.000 personas, dejando un tendal de más de 1 millón de heridos en el proceso. Una organización que en vez de enfrentar estos conflictos, invierte tiempo y esfuerzo en imponerle a los países pobres que cómo y deben producir, con quién vincularse, qué deben comer.
He's talking about how the UN imposes these controls on the poor countries, which, as he correctly realizes, keeps them poor.
Yeah.
Yes.
En qué creer, cómo pretende dictar el presente pacto del futuro. Toda esta larga lista de errores y contradicciones no ha sido gratuita, sino que ha redundado en la pérdida de credibilidad de las Naciones Unidas ante los ciudadanos del mundo libre y en la desnaturalización de sus funciones. Por eso quiero hacer una advertencia. Estamos ante un fin de ciclo. El colectivismo y el postureo moral de la agenda woke se han chocado con la realidad y ya no tienen soluciones creíbles para ofrecer a los problemas reales del mundo. De hecho, nunca las tuvieron. Si la Agenda 2030 fracasó, como reconocen sus propios promotores, la respuesta debería ser preguntarnos si no fue un programa mal concebido de inicio, aceptar esa realidad.
Basically says if Agenda 2030 fails, maybe we should ask if it was a poorly conceived program to begin with. Otherwise, he's questioning, do you really have good intentions if your programs fail? I think that's a great question, don't you, Jorge?
I still think they do. It's just one crop of fools comes after the next. It happens in every country.
Yeah. I did have a lady on here talking about Chavez a while ago, and he actually, he got cancer. He actually says, well, I'm going to go to Cuba. And, so I said, he really was a believer, wasn't he? And of course, if he went to a good healthcare system, maybe he wouldn't have lived. So Chavez Chavez actually ate his own dog food, so to speak, and it killed him, and that's not a tragedy. But we're left with Maduro, so it's not like it makes any difference there. But you got any Venezuelan friends, Jorge, by the way?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few living in South Florida, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to the speech here. Yes.
Y cambiar el rumbo. No se puede pretender persistir en el error redoblando la apuesta de una agenda que ha fracasado. Siempre ocurre lo mismo con las ideas que vienen de la izquierda. Diseñan un modelo acorde a lo que el ser humano debería ser, según ellos, y cuando los individuos libremente actúan de otra manera, no tienen mejor solución que restringir, reprimir y coartar su libertad. Nosotros en Argentina ya hemos visto con nuestros propios ojos lo que hay al final de este camino de envidia y pasiones tristes. Pobreza, embrutecimiento, anarquía y una ausencia fatal de libertad. Todavía estamos a tiempo de apartarnos de ese rumbo. Quiero ser claro con algo para que no haya malas interpretaciones. La Argentina, que está viviendo un proceso profundo de cambio en la actualidad, ha decidido abrazar las ideas de la libertad. Esas ideas que dicen que todos los ciudadanos nacemos libres e iguales ante la ley, que tenemos derechos inalienables otorgados por el Creador, entre los que se encuentran el derecho a la vida, a la libertad y a la propiedad. Esos principios que ordenan el proceso de cambio que estamos llevando adelante en la Argentina son también los principios que guardarán nuestra conducta internacional a partir de ahora. Creemos en la defensa de la vida de todos. Creemos en la defensa de la propiedad de todos. Creemos en la libertad de expresión.
Notice how he puts an emphasis on the word todos there, which of course translates to all. We believe in the private property of all. We believe in the freedom of all. I love that.
But notice how he uses a very like God-given rights approach, and to the atheist, secular central planners, just like with the Soviet Union, these are just ideologues. We ignore their stuff.
I don't think secularism necessarily implies that you have to be a totalitarian. But
yeah, I mean, me neither. But to the central planners, all of these God-given rights, it just gets in the way.
It's funny how it's almost like real Christianity is you have this bacteria on your skin, and if you and the bacteria keeps other bacteria from getting on your skin, and if you clean off that bacteria, you might get worse bacteria. So it's almost like Christianity is this. It keeps worse things from coming in, but it's kind of, I'm in a very weird place right now religiously. The fact is, Christians have generally treated me better than non-Christians, so I've got to acknowledge that. So anyway.
Expresión para todos. Creemos en la libertad de culto para todos. Creemos en la libertad de comercio para todos. Y creemos en los gobiernos limitados, todos ellos. Y como en estos tiempos lo que sucede en un país impacta rápidamente en otros, creemos que todos los pueblos deben vivir libres de la tiranía y la opresión, ya sea que tome forma de opresión política, de esclavitud económica o de fanatismo religioso. Esa idea fundamental no debe quedarse en meras palabras, tiene que ser apoyada en los hechos, diplomáticamente, económicamente y materialmente, a través de la fuerza conjunta de todos los países que defendemos la libertad. Esta doctrina de la nueva Argentina no es más ni menos que la verdadera esencia de la Organización de las Naciones Unidas, es decir, la cooperación de Naciones Unidas en defensa de la libertad. Si las Naciones Unidas deciden retomar los principios que le dieron vida y volver a adaptar el rol para la que fue concebida, cuente con el apoyo inclaudicable de la Argentina en la lucha por la libertad. Sepan también que la Argentina no acompañará ninguna política que implique la restricción de las libertades individuales, del comercio ni la violación de los derechos naturales de los individuos. No importa quién la promueva ni cuánto consenso tenga esa institución. Por esta razón, queremos expresar oficialmente nuestro disenso sobre el Pacto del Futuro firmado el día domingo e invitamos a todas las naciones del mundo libre a que nos acompañen, no solo en el disenso de este pacto, sino en la creación de una nueva agenda para esta noble institución, la agenda de la libertad. A partir de este día sepan que la República Argentina va a abandonar la posición de neutralidad histórica que nos caracterizó y va a estar a la vanguardia de la lucha en defensa de la libertad. Porque
He says he wants to be in the forefront of the fight in defense of freedom, which that can mean a lot of things.
This reminds me, I think you remember the guys from the Great Barrington Declaration?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they had done, the Great Barrington Declaration was about COVID, where they got a lot of doctors together. So the same guys at the Brownstone Institute, they recently came up with a new Great Barrington-like declaration about freedom and free markets and so on. And they're trying to get a lot of famous people to back it. And they got Milei to be one of the main backers. So they got Milei, Jordan Peterson as some of their initial backers of this pro-freedom.
Yeah.
So maybe
they are doing some amazing work. The American Institute for Economic Research. I mean, they've really raised their reputation. I had not really known that much about them, and then I realized, oh my goodness, they've been doing since the 1930s. I mean, I can't say it, Jorge, but isn't it interesting that an organization that is not in Washington, D.C. or around Washington, D.C. seems to stay more principled than an organization that is in that area? It's
they're not too far, okay? They're near Boston, just a few hours from
but
DC.
They're not in Washington, D.C.
True, they're not.
Yeah, and they're in this little small town in Western Massachusetts.
Como decía Tomás Paine, aquellos que desean cosechar las bendiciones de la libertad deben como hombres soportar la fatiga de defenderla.
I love how he mentions Thomas Paine. Yeah, I gotta say, how many books has this guy read? I mean, he's always quoting people. This looks like a man who's gotten his education everywhere, not just from, he's followed one guru his whole life. It really looks like he's really just, taking in a smorgasbord of knowledge. He's smart. He really is.
Que Dios bendiga a los argentinos y a todos los ciudadanos del mundo y que las fuerzas del cielo nos acompañen. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo! Muchas gracias.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Argentine Republic.
Well, that was a good speech. There's a lot of good speeches out there. I don't know if I'll be able to analyze all of them, but I was glad to have you on here to talk about it. What's your impression overall?
Good, nice and short. Wasn't too long or boring. Nice. The Bastiat quote was nice.
Oh yeah,
great Milei stuff.
Yeah, Bastiat's a good person to quote because sometimes I think when you're trying to get people into a new belief system, if you got a choice between giving them The Law by Bastiat or give them Atlas Shrugged, give them The Law by Bastiat because it's a little book. The first thing, Economics in One Lesson is another example. It's a quick, short book. And of course, economics, and Haslow was, wrote for newspapers. So people who write for newspapers understand you have to write simple English. You can't use these 4 and 5 syllable words all the time because people are just going to turn up their nose at it because they don't get it. How was your visit down to Argentina, Jorge? I'm always interested in hearing about, you obviously got to meet some people. You went to Buenos Aires.
Yeah, so it was great. Like as soon as I think, the first cab driver, the first Uber driver was a Venezuelan. And he was really happy with Milei because obviously coming from Venezuela, he knew all the socialist nonsense was just going to destroy the country. And something else that I learned from this Venezuelan guy is that it's relatively easy for Venezuelans to move to Argentina. I think within a matter of a week, he just went to some office, he showed some simple paperwork, and he was already able to work very quickly. So that was nice to see that a lot of them, they have a lot of immigrants there from Latin America, and they can very quickly find jobs. And it seems like the underground market, it's a big bureaucracy, but they were telling me that even with the big bureaucracy and everything, like Argentina is a great place for like other Latin America immigrants.
Well, they're talking about, the informal market. The other thing too, of course,
Yeah.
there's no language barrier, so they go right in there. Uh, Milei, the Venezuelan immigrants love Milei, and they love him. I mean, I've seen at least one picture of him holding a Venezuelan flag. So,
Yeah.
it's funny how, if you have these capitalist policies and you have a healthy culture, you're going to attract immigrants who make your culture better. Certainly you get. That's one thing about Miami, though. Miami seems to get a lot of not just people from Cuba, but a lot of South Americans in general. Is that fair to say? I mean, the one place in America where I've been able to buy empanadas is in Miami.
Yeah. Also, I mean, if anybody goes there, there's a lot of talk about like the money and so on.
Yeah.
I made the classic mistake of getting change at the airport, and they gave me like a 20% worst off rate. But it's pretty easy to go to Western Union. But
often the airport is the easiest place to change your money.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. I mean, I went down there, and I before I went down to Argentina, I purposely went to my credit union and I said I want 51s. And I said, this is tip money. So I had $51 bills, and you can imagine and eventually that ran out, but because I said, well, they'll get tips in dollars, which they do appreciate.
And also more like Uber drivers. I mean, I love talking to them because they're like locals, and they're really living at the moment. And there was one guy, because of the high inflation, he was pretty wise. I mean, it's always a risk, but like they don't give a lot of loans. It's very hard to get loans because of the high inflation and so on. But somehow he managed to get like some auto loans in pesos, and he got a great deal, because the super high inflation ended up paying the cars that he was buying for his fleet. He had like 3 cars, and he does Uber with 3 cars. So very entrepreneurial guys. And one of them really blew my mind. I mean, it seems like every cab driver knows that it's the central bank that's printing all the money that's causing all the inflation. Like everybody knows that. And I think Milei has a lot to do with that. And one of them that just really blew my mind started talking to me about anarcho-capitalism. Okay. So that's just amazing. I mean, I must have taken like 20 Uber rides, and the fact that 1 out of 20 is already talking about anarcho-capitalism, that just shows just what an incredible effect like Milei has had for these people.
Yeah, and one thing I realize about Uber drivers or Cabify drivers or Lyft drivers or whoever they're driving with, this is a person who interacts with everybody. He's talking to doctors, he's talking to lawyers, he's talking to probably really rich people, he's talking to poor people, or maybe not poor people, but people who aren't so rich. He's talking to people from every neighborhood. He's probably talking to people who travel there, probably talks to people from all over South America. I mean, I mean, if you want to know what's going on in a city, an Uber driver, you can probably ask the Uber driver, hey, where are the cool parties? Where are the cool bars? And, the Uber driver say, oh, these are the cool bars. I mean, I mean, you're probably talking, point is, an Uber driver probably knows as much about Buenos Aires as anybody does, because he's probably been all over town, and
Yeah. And I mean, I also got to meet local libertarians. I got to meet the Caprav family and the
Caprav family. Yeah, I've invited some of them. They're the CAPRAV. Yeah, they're good people. There's lots of good people. There's still lots of good people that have been on here. There are so many good people, though. Yeah, and I want to get all of them here.
Well, it's always interesting to see, the history, because there's really like many Lou Rockwells or like freedom entrepreneurs in every country, and every country has a history of their. But it's interesting to see what a role like Mises had in helping all of this.
Oh yes.
So.
And I can remember going to a couple seminars at the Foundation for Economic Education back in the 90s, and there were Argentine estudiantes there both times, art students from Argentina at the Foundation for Economic Education. So there's definitely been making inroads. I'm really glad that our think tanks have been putting things out there. Leonard Reed, the founder of the Foundation for Economic Education, just want to let you know you've done good work. Maybe you didn't get to see it happen, but you've certainly had an impact on this wonderful country in South America. What were some of the highlights? I mean, places you really definitely want to go back to. You just went to Buenos Aires, or?
No, I spent about half my time in Buenos Aires and also in Cordoba, which is like the
Cordoba,
second
yeah. What'd you think of
biggest
Cordoba?
city. Yeah, wonderful as well. Wonderful to see all these old,
Yeah.
architecture, churches from like the 1600s. Kind of like what you'd expect. And
Yeah.
I mean, things were very cheap. I mean, like restaurant meals, I would say about 60%, maybe even half. So your money really went far.
Yeah,
The
you could still
metro,
spend. You could still spend a lot. You could still spend a lot on food in Buenos Aires, but you can find cheap places too. But yeah, it's all over the place as far as level of class is.
yeah.
But
No, but
Cordoba, yes.
But
Cordoba
even,
is
for
also
example,
cheaper.
if you go to like a Starbucks, I remember like a coffee at a
Yeah.
Starbucks, it would be like 60% of what it was in the US. But actually, just recently, I spent about 10 days in Guatemala, and Guatemala's prices were just like in the US. I was a bit surprised. It was very expensive compared to Argentina.
I'll say, Mexico is almost becoming too American. I don't know if that affects Guatemala much, but obviously, when you're in, I mean, these people are very good at hustling, and when they know if they know Americans are going to come, well, let's see what we can get these Americans to pay. They know how to wheel and deal. Oh yes, he will pay that much. Good for him.
Yeah. Also, something I really liked and I thought was great, the metro in Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
and it was very good, very clean, very nice. But I do believe that it was very subsidized at the time,
Yeah.
and I think after I left, they finally got rid of the subsidies, and the fares might have doubled or tripled.
Yeah.
But it was absurdly cheap when I was there.
Yeah, I think if you really want to get to know the city, use their public transportation. Yeah, that'll.
And I think for
everybody would say go
anyone,
out to the bars, but yeah,
and anyone looking to like invest, I assume that as Milei really stabilizes things and it becomes more obvious that Argentina is going to be very prosperous. I mean, it's amazing. You could buy like a 1-bedroom apartment in Buenos Aires within metro access to all the places for like in the high 40s. I can see like a big boom.
40,000. You mean?
Yeah, $40,000.
Yes. The Fountainhead Forum is not legal advice. The Fountainhead Forum is not investment advice. The Fountainhead Forum is not tax advice. The Fountainhead Forum is not immigration advice. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, and also it's you didn't have the language barrier, which makes it easy. I mean, I suppose also, and Buenos Aires is definitely a city where you can get by without a car.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I've noticed also sometimes too, it's just easier to just stand on the street and wave and not even use Uber. But the advantage to using Uber or Cabify, which is one of the big ride shares in the Spanish-speaking world, is that you can put it in the address and you don't have to tell the driver where you're going. So, which sometimes can be trouble if you're if you're going to the airport, it's not hard to explain to them because they go to the airport all the time. But if you're going somewhere else, it could be a problem. But yeah, you'll see a lot of cabs drive around and they have a little sign up that says Libre, which means free. There, you just flag them down and go wherever. Yeah, Buenos Aires is an amazing city.
Yeah. Something else. I looked at the local news just to see what they're talking about and so on, and I did catch a little bit of coverage of the Israeli-Hamas war, and it was very kind of like what I expected. It was just some footage of a terrorist getting shot. It was very like it's a very Zionized.
So that was interesting. I didn't really see much of the news. I went out to the gyms, which are always a telling thing. You see people working out, and I noticed too. You can go into a lot of bathrooms down there in like a Starbucks or something. You don't have to get a key, get a code or anything. You just walk in. It's I think Argentina really has a lot of potential to go far here.
Yeah.
Was there anything particularly you liked? I mean, anything that really stood out? Like you got to go visit this, that kind of thing.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, just the whole city was just like really. I went to the Palacio Rosario, whatever, where the president is. I also went
Casa Rosada.
Casa Rosado, yeah, Rosada.
Yes.
there was some protest during the time, like in their congressional building. I went there while they had a protest, but it was a lot smaller than one would think. They want to make it a lot bigger, but it was just a couple of communists.
Yeah.
A couple hundred people at most. So I got to see that as well.
Yeah, where they probably got. this is the thing. There's so many grass fields and stuff. You don't have to block traffic to protest in Buenos Aires. You can just find a grass field somewhere, find a public square and stand there.
Something else I really enjoyed that I think it also has a very motorcycle friendly culture, which you see in a lot of Latin American countries. It looks like it's very easy to own a motorcycle. You could drive it everywhere, park it on the sidewalks. I like that. I have a sport bike, so I'm like, I wish it was like that over here. So
did you rent a vehicle by chance?
No, I came close to renting a motorcycle, but next time.
I've always wondered about that. I've never tried to drive in foreign countries, but yes, you do drive on the right side there. And I just, and one thing also there will be an adjustment in a lot. You get outside of the USA, you'll find a lot more standard transmissions. So if you don't know how to drive a standard transmission, that could be an obstacle. But that's another thing. Some places, car rentals are super cheap, but I don't really know what you do if you get into a situation there. If you're in a foreign country with a car, if you have an accident or something. Yeah. What was some of your favorite foods?
Pizza. They're very well known for pizza, and the pizza was very cheap. The food was very cheap. Pizza. Yeah, the meat was great. A lot of places. For $10, you can get a nice meal, including tip.
I was lucky. Really, the best food I had.
I definitely gained for like 5 pounds.
And I had some good seafood down there. I figured this country's got this coast. It's got to have a seafood culture, which they did. I had some good seafood. But that's not. But I have to say the meat was a little disappointing. But I definitely had pizza and I had some other things. Also interesting too. I noticed that there was a McDonald's that had beer, which you will not see in America. But yeah, it's I really think they could. I think they've got a lot of potential here, but I've also realizing that cleaning up the corruption is a monumental task, and we don't have a whole lot of experience in doing this.
Something else I saw in Argentina for the first time. My flight, the airline that flew me from Buenos Aires to Cordoba, they had like their ticket, like you could resell it online or something like that. Yeah, like if you don't want your ticket, you could resell it and you could like auction it off.
Something.
I had never seen.
Which airline was that?
I forgot the name of the airline, but I just remember kind of seeing that
there's
they had
JetSmart, there's Biondi or something like that, and then of course there's Adeline.
I think it was Fly Bondi or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to both airports or did you go to? Because there's two airports there. There's the big airport, which is EZE. That's the code, and then there's Aeroparque, which is the smaller airport.
I think
the smaller airport deals with a lot more domestic travel.
Right. Yeah, I think I dealt with both. The domestic flight for
the bigger airport is where where all the international flights come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jorge, it has been great having you on here.
Yeah, thanks.
We're also a few days away from the election. I'm going to end up voting on election day, and I will be voting for Chase Oliver. I hope you will be too.
I don't think I'm going to vote. There are like some local election things. Maybe I will vote, but I'll probably vote for Trump. Actually, just today I saw Bill Kristol saying how Trump was against the Ukraine war, and if you want to support Ukraine, you can't vote for Trump. And I'm just so pissed off at Bill Kristol. I think I might just vote for Trump.
Bill Kristol is certainly a good anti-endorsement.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these. It's funny. I think we're more motivated by the anti-endorsements than the endorsements themselves. Yeah. And you're down near Miami, so you didn't really get much hurricane activity, did you?
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, this last one came right by my house. I live in Englewood, so it came right by me. So
I don't know where Englewood is.
I'm just like 30 minutes south of Sarasota. So the hurricane came.
Oh, okay. I thought you were in Miami. I'm sorry. Yeah, my mistake. No, yeah.
But I got lucky. I didn't really have any damage. Okay. Actually, I was in Guatemala.
Sarasota, yeah.
I was in Guatemala while the hurricane came by, but luckily nothing happened. But yeah, it
That's a
was.
good time to be in Guatemala. I should probably, that, and of course you were in Guatemala for that free market university that they often talk about, right? Yeah. Can
Oh
you tell us
yeah,
a
yeah,
little bit about that?
yeah. It's wonderful. Francisco Marroquin University. They're
Yeah.
like, the best known university I think in Latin America as far as just like pure free market stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Any libertarians, if you're in the US, I mean, it's so cheap to fly from Miami.
And
For like,
you forget Central America is not that far.
yeah, it's not far.
It's cheaper
Couple of
because
hours.
also, to go to Buenos Aires, they have to take the jumbo jets.
Right.
To go, even to go to Colombia, they don't have to take those jumbo jets. They can take the 737s or the Airbus A320s, and they can have 2 or 3 flights a day. And they take the jets that take about 150 or 200 passengers,
Yeah.
as opposed to the jumbo jets, which are usually 300 or more. It's so yeah, that's definitely, it's definitely you end up with a lot more flying options too, which is what makes it cheaper. I mean, but
so if one's a libertarian, I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah.
you're in Texas, it's not that far.
Yeah.
They might have flights from Houston.
Oh
and
yeah,
San-
I mean, I remember flying from DFW to San Salvador, and San Salvador was 3 hours. I said, I remember thinking this was actually a little shorter than flying to LA. It's okay. That's easy enough. It's a I went to San Salvador for the adopting Bitcoin. I mean, I can fly to. Is it Tegucigalpa? Is that what the capital of? Or no, that's Honduras. Oh, Guatemala is Guatemala City, or Ciudad de Guatemala. Yeah, Mexico and Guatemala, their capital cities are just named after the country.
Yeah, but again, like Francisco Marroquin University, it's just so nice. I mean, you walking by there and they have like big busts of Mises and Hayek and all these economists, and it's very unique, Definitely.
I'm thinking about the next. I think I'm going to make a goal for myself of visiting at least one new country every year, and I think I'll maybe it'll be Guatemala. I'm also thinking possibly about Paraguay or Bolivia, but I'll see what my new country is going to be. But yeah, it's, maybe that's a good one to pick. Yeah, it's Guatemala. Yeah, it's Guatemala is a small country too. It's
and the weather is very nice. They're like they're like a kilometer high up, so even though they're kind of closer to the equator, it's very cool. They say that the AC is always on. That's an expression they told me.
Yeah, that's one thing. Also, if you've been to some of the big Colombian cities, they're high up, which makes them cooler. But boy, some of those cities are really high, and you might be. I mean, I get about 7,000 feet. I start to get massive headaches, and that just doesn't make it fun. But yeah, it's and I guess Sarasota's how far? You got to probably hop over to Miami and go from there then, or?
Oh yeah, I flew from Miami, and which is about 3.5 hours from.
Do you
I got to drive across the state.
You get a little short flight, or you drive to Miami usually?
Oh, I drive to Miami.
Okay, yeah. Miami's a nice airport. Actually, a pretty decent airport. It's definitely better. I'll tell you what I like about Miami. This is the only airport where I've entered America. And, so I'm coming from a foreign country. So I go in there, I have to go into customs. So and then I have to, pick up my bag, and then I have to check my bag back in. And once I have all that done, I leave the area. And then and I go out these doors, and I'm in a secured area. Every other single airport in America, I end up in a non-secured area and I have to go back through security again. That doesn't happen in Miami. It's one thing I entering the U.S. at Miami is nice. It's definitely one of the better airports where you can enter the U.S.
And it is like a big hub. You can get a lot of cheap flights. Like I recently.
Well, it's the hub for American Airlines. Yeah,
but many others like Norse Airlines, they have like a lot of cheap flights. I mentioned it on Facebook. I got like a few years ago, I got a one-way flight to Oslo for $119. And a
Oh,
couple of
wow.
years ago, yeah, I went to Berlin for like 124.
Berlin?
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Berlin surprised me because it seems like Lufthansa does more out of Frankfurt than they do out of Berlin, which is why that kind of surprised me. But anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, even though Berlin is the capital, but it seems like Frankfurt's but yeah, Berlin's a big city too. Yeah. Well, anyway, Jorge, it's always cool to hear about the travels and stuff. I hope we can.
Yeah, I'll bump into you again soon.
Yeah, we'll bump
I'm
into
always
you
running
again
into
soon.
you.
After LP National and all that
Yeah.
other stuff, it's been Florida and do you think DeSantis might run again in 2028?
Yeah, good guess. Yeah, I'm not thinking
I
that
really
far.
think governors should stay
Yeah.
governors and not run for. I would say this for most people, but the most positive thing I've heard about DeSantis is that he's a very good hurricane governor.
Oh, and he did good with the COVID
Yeah.
mania.
He
He had
really
even a
gets.
panel. He had a COVID
Yeah.
panel, and I think even Tom Woods was.
I
part of
think DeSantis was actually regretting a lot of this stuff. I think he realized it was all just a huge mistake.
Yeah.
To his credit, he seems to be the one person who admitted that he made mistakes by buying into it at all. But everybody says it's as long as the government controls the roads. I mean, if I'm in a hurricane, I want a government that gets on stuff and gets things back up and running. Of course, by now Florida's certainly learned how to deal with all this. It's not like it's a new thing. Florida probably gets as many hurricanes as anywhere in the world, I can imagine. I was actually asking some people about, in Argentina about hurricanes. They said they don't hardly get any. This has been an interesting conversation, Jorge. We've learned a lot here, and we'll continue to learn. And certainly, you got a website, right?
Oh yeah, Besada.com, and you can go to Amazon too and search some of the books I've written.
Also, aren't you doing some readings? You're reading stuff online and uploading YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, I like to do text to speech conversions.
Yes. Do you read them, or do you read them yourself, or do you just doing conversions?
No, I use like a computer. Amazon.
Okay. So you're not doing you're doing something that anybody can do. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, but you do that now, and then you. Okay, well, please like my novel, subscribe to the channel, or please go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Subscribe to the channel, like this video. Go thumbs up on it. Also, I have a buy me a coffee. Also got a Substack. Hopefully this has been the 59th edition, I believe, of the Javier Milei Show. I'm definitely going to look more into what's going on with Mondino. That is huge news. And I don't want to state anything until I'm absolutely sure of it. But yes, I got to really basically contact everybody, at least everybody in Argentina, about this, because we'll learn some stuff, and we'll learn some more stuff as time goes on. Gracias for coming on my show, Jorge. And I'm Chris Baker. We're out.